All right. Well, thank you all for coming tonight. Alex, I see that you just joined us. Thank you very much. And everybody here now and people on YouTube, appreciate you all joining us. And people on YouTube, if there's you'd like some more information or how to join us in real time or to how to get the books, please contact us uh, at Buddha Practice Study at gmail.com is the best way to contact us. So we'll begin by doing our opening prayers. We'll recite the altruistic motivation. We begin that on page 1. I'll recite the prayers tonight. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mothers sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Dagla dangwa je pe dra no pa je pe ge tar pa dang tam she ken pe bar du jo pa je pa tam she ki so je pe manam kadam yam pe sem chen tam she de wa dang den Dug now dong drel nor du la na me pa yang dag pa zog pe shang ju brin po she to pa ja. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Deshe du sang ma ge gi bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. Ma she bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. Du de ring ne song te ni ma sang ta sam gi bar du lu nag yi sam ge wa la ko. We take refuge in the kind root Lama and lineage Lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the Yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We take refuge in the kind root Lama and lineage Lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the Yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Transcend sa wadangur pa je pe pao dan la ma dam pa nam la kyab su chi o. Yedam kil gorgi la sok nam la kyab su chi o. Sangye chom dende nam la kyab su chi o. Dampe cho nam la kyab su chi o. Pape ge du nam la kyab su chi o. Pawo ka jo cho kyong song me song yes she gi chang dang dem pa nam la kyab su chi o. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Shangshub Ningpo Chiki Bar Sangye Namla Kapsuchi Chodang Shangshub Sampayi Soklang Deshin Kapsuchi Jitar Nongi Deshegi Shangshub Togni Ki Padan Shangshub Sampe La Pala De Dagrim Shin E Patar De Shindro La Pandandu Shangshub Samni Ki Gishin De Shindu Ni La Pala Rimpa Shindu La Pajio. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye Chodang Soki Chodamla Shangshu Bardu Dagni Kapsuchi Dagi Jinsoki Pe Sonamgi Jola Penshir Sangye Jupasho. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pesem centam she de wadang de we gurdang dempar jorchi. Dugnal dang dunal gi gudang drawar jorchi. Dugnal me pe de wadang mi drawar jorchi. Ne ring chak dang ni dang drawe dang namla ne par jorchi. The 100-syllable purification mantra of Vajrasattva. Om Vajrasattva Samaya, help to protect my vow, to purify myself. May you remain firm with me. Grant me the complete satisfaction. Grow with me, be loving towards me. Grant me the attainments to master the powers beyond body and nature. Show me all the deeds of body, speech, and mind. Make my mind-heart good, virtuous, and auspicious. Revel in the bliss of the four joys, O Blessed One, who embodies the essence within me. Do not abandon me. Grant me the realization of the indestructible nature. Make me one with you. Thus, I signify my unity with non-duality. Ah. Om Bodhisattva Samaya Manupalaya Bodhisattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bawa Suto Kayo Me Bawa Supo Kayo Me Bawa Anuraktu Me Bawa Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sitsa Me Sitsan Triya Kuru Hum Ha 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 ho Bhagawan Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Munsa Bajri Bhava Mahasamaya Satwaha Om Bajra Satwa Samaya Manupalaya Bajra Satwa Tenopa Drista Dredo Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sitsa Me Sitsan Shriya Kuru Hum Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Munsa Bajri Bhava Mahasamaya Satwaha Om Bajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Bajra Sattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sitsa Me Sitsan Triya Kuru Hum Ha 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 ho Bhagawan Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Munsa Bajri Bhava Mahasamaya Satwaha. The Sagari Mati requested Sutra in English. Likewise be extinguished. Extinguish all enemies to my purpose. Whatever evil forces are in me, be defeated. Do this so that when I am victorious, all pure radiance melts into me completely purified. Take all this knowledge, food, and drink peacefully, enjoy it, and be satisfied so that all obstacles may be destroyed. Be liberated from all obstacles, all general obstacles. Maras are defeated by this gesture of the Buddha. By reciting this mantra, may all the Maras be purified. As a result, may all the Maras be defeated. Thank you all very much. Does anybody have any questions about the opening prayers? And also last week, I ended by saying, if anybody had any things that they wanted to talk about in their readings or something that they wanted to discuss, something in the readings, something we wanted to read, whatever, to bring it up. So does anybody have any comments or questions? Gil, yes, I see you have your hand
Yes.
up. Thank
you. The bride told me that I yelled at you last week in the meeting, and I want to humbly apologize for that.
No problem. It was not taken in any negative way, so no problem at all. We're all brothers and sisters, so that's okay. No problem. Maybe I did something to promote, a raised voice or something, so I apologize for that.
All you. Are you, honey?
Okay. Gil, your microphone is still on.
It comes from the same place the grumpy old man comes from.
Okay. All right. Well, then I just want to try and tie things up from the last chapter, the first chapter that we started, the chapter 1, the setting, without going into a whole lot of detail with that. But a major thing that I think needs to be brought out is that here Buddha Shakyamuni was being questioned, was during his presence in the midst of many of his disciples and so on and bodhisattvas, and he was kind of explaining the story of the setting of what the environment was, who the beings were, and so on like that, and a primary cause for his being in this situation. He was talking about himself as being a bodhisattva who had not yet become a Buddha, who was on the path to become a bodhisattva. So he's kind of speaking in the third person, speaking about himself. One of the points he made is an important point because he was listing many of the past Buddhas, those Buddhas that came before him. Buddha Shakyamuni is largely regarded as being, I think, the fourth Buddha. But there's been many Buddhas. There's many Buddhas now. There'll be many Buddhas in the future and so on. But he was speaking in terms of that there were many Buddhas that were there. There were many bodhisattvas that were there, that were in the presence of the Buddha giving this teaching, this Sutra teaching that he was giving. And one of the points was that all these masters, all these thus gone ones, all these Buddhas who had human lives, went through their human lives and purified the different elements of their human lives and so on to become Buddha, to, whether they still had a human form or they dropped their form, they dropped their body, and now they became pure spirit, and of course are omnipresent everywhere. So they were there, and they were telling, it was these Buddhas, it was these thus gone ones, the Tathagatas, that all these teachings really emanate from, because all the Buddhas are teaching the same thing. All the Buddhas have all these same qualities. They are radiating all these same qualities. The thing that makes Buddha Shakyamuni different is that in his activity, that he is bringing the method of the cessation of the suffering. This is what Buddha Shakyamuni is doing. This is and this is for our benefit, doing this for our benefit and so on. So he's kind of recounting all the different causes, all the different things that the thus gone ones would have been talking about, that he had to go through and purify himself. And now as Buddha, once he attained Buddha, now he is presenting this in a way that is offering a way out, or is a way to liberate oneself from this ocean of suffering, from this samsara. So there is a particular mantra that we recite, and we recite it, in many different practices and prayers that we do and so on, and it's called the mantra of interdependent origination. So interdependent origination, that we are all interdependent, and as our formative beings, as this phenomenal nature, we come together in this interdependence and so on, and we're looking at all the reasons for this, how this is manifest, and how it is that we can liberate ourselves from the suffering, from the attachment and so on that is found in this phenomenal nature and so on. So this mantra of interdependent origination is translated like this. It says, all phenomena arise from causes. Those causes have been taught by the Tathagatas. The cessation, too, has been proclaimed by the great ascetic, the Sramaniye, so be it. So what this is saying is all phenomena arise from causes. So all this phenomenal nature, all this, what we we call this our life, the world, and all these different, 6 human realms and so on that we've talked about over and over again in different classes and so on. And now we're going back through the sutras to look at this. And but all this phenomena arises from causes. Beings want this to happen, and it manifests as a result. Those causes have been taught by the thus gone ones. The Buddhas have taught this. Buddha Shakyamuni, as a Bodhisattva in prior lives, was receiving the teachings from those Buddhas who was teaching him and teaching others the causes of this of this phenomenal nature, why we have this life, why we have all these things, why we have the 5 poisons and the 6 human realms and so on. Why? So they were teaching all of this. Why? Then the next line says, the cessation too has been proclaimed by the great ascetic. So the cessation of this, the cutting off of this, the cutting off of our attachments, the cutting off of our delusions, the cutting off of our hatred, the cutting off of our jealousy, the cutting off of our pridefulness, the cutting off of our greed. How do we do that? Well, this is what Buddha Shakyamuni teaches, the cessation of this, how to do this. And this is what we're learning through our practices and through the sutras and so on. We're learning the method to be able to do that, the cutting off. And we may have said this at one time or another, but it really comes down to one day, one moment. You say, you know what? I realize this is all on me, and I'm going to stop creating all this suffering for myself. And it's like flipping a switch that you say, I'm just going to stop doing it. Now, we may go through periods where we are doing that, but then the switch pops back open again, and then we start doing the negative things that we're doing. And we finally get tired of that happening back and forth until we get to the time to say, I'm going to make this change and I'm not going back on this change. So this is what Buddha Shakyamuni is teaching. So the cessation, the stopping, the cutting off, the cutting through of the attachments, of the causes, has been proclaimed by the great ascetic, the Shramaniya. So the ascetic is the one who goes off by themselves for some period of time into a hermitage, a hut, or a retreat cell, or a cave, or your room upstairs or downstairs, wherever it is, for a period of time that allows you to be able to purify yourself, to be able to go through all this and become quite resolute in being able to commit to this practice of purification and so on. So it's the great ascetic who becomes ascetic, who cuts off all these possessions, cuts off all these unnecessary things that we have around ourselves, and becomes, one who is just surrounded with their own thoughts and their own practices, and through that is cleaning themselves, is purifying themselves, the great ascetic. So in this mantra, it's called the Shramaniya, the great one who purifies themselves to the primordial nature, to the primordial level, to reveal the primordial nature that we have within ourselves. And then so be it. So I'll recite this in Sanskrit, I'll fracture it, but nevertheless, this comes from the Sanskrit says, Omya Dharma Hetu Prabhava Hetu Takan Tadagato Heawa Tatata Takansa Yonarada Evamwadi Mahashamaniye Soha. So that's the mantra. And in our practices, as I've said, we recite that many times. So this first chapter was really saying that, Here is the experience of Buddha Shakyamuni as a bodhisattva before he was even Siddhartha Gautama in prior lives, who had to go through the same process that we go through, and was able to get to the level of being a high bodhisattva. And in his last life, in his life as Siddhartha Gautama, sitting under the Bodhi tree, he was able to attain enlightenment. He was able to recognize enlightenment. He was able to achieve that. So then he became Buddha and began to teach the Four Noble Truths and the sutras and all the things that we're studying now. So that's the setting. That was the first chapter. So I want to tie that up into a little bow. Any questions or comments about that? Okay. So now comes the second chapter, which is titled The Inspiration. What was the inspiration of this all to happen? So this is a meaty chapter. It's not a long chapter, but it's a meaty chapter. It's got a lot of reference points that may need definition. You can use the glossary. You can use other books. You can use Google. You may find many things. You can write down the things that you want to know about and can't find, and ask us. You can write us a message. You can write it on the WhatsApp group that we have, because everybody here is all part of the WhatsApp group. So, it's like continuing our conversation here now. During the week, we can have questions and answers doing that. And I invite that to happen. That would be really wonderful. But if you want to write us a private note, you can do that through our Gmail, or you can save it until the next week. But, the point is to get engaged with these sutras, and questions are bound to come up. Things are not going to be so obvious to us. Even with the second, third, fourth, and fifth readings of these sutras and these different prayers and practices and things that we do, sometimes they need clarification, particularly because we need to be able to bring them to our 21st century minds. Many of these things were done 2,600 years ago, and they have a certain cultural reference to them that we may not have right now. But it doesn't diminish the essence of the truth of what it is that's being said, but it does change in a certain context because we're 21st century people. And a lot of this, really, we should understand even more than they did 2,600 years ago, because we have gone through many lifetimes of purification ourselves to get to this point. Many of us could be in a level where, in this lifetime, the next lifetime, the lifetime after that, sometimes they would say in 3 lifetimes, after exposing yourself and exploring these teachings and everything, that it would just take 3 more lifetimes in order to become fully realized, to be fully enlightened, to be fully liberated. So we're much closer to it than you might think. The glass is definitely half full, and maybe 3/4 of the way full, or something like that. We're all good people. That's clear to me. We're all good people. We're all virtuous people. So the things that would be pulling us back would be the beings that wind up in hell, and the beings that wind up as hungry ghosts, and the human animals that wind up in the animal realm, and so on like that. And we really have evolved, have developed, purified past those levels and so on. So now we're learning, where it is that we really are, and to be able to seize on that and to be able to now carry that forward for ourselves by doing this for the benefit of other beings. This is the work. See, this is the level that we've come to, that for us to be able to do this, to overcome our ego, we need to be doing all of this for the benefit of others, not selfishly for ourselves. We're doing it selfishly for ourselves, we get pulled back. We've got our ego. We've got, all these attachments that have been created, all these hatreds have created, and they're very, it's like a thin veneer of our progress. It's like a thin veneer. But as we do this for others, that veneer becomes like thick hardwood. It becomes very, very, pronounced. It becomes very powerful because we have been pronouncing the truth to ourselves and to other beings and so on, to help other beings and so on. And it helps to solidify. It helps to make stable what it is that we're learning and practicing and ultimately teaching and so on. So we're closer than you might think we are. So this inspiration, I think the best thing, the way to approach this is to read some of this and then stop at certain points and talk about this. Anybody got any questions or comments about that? Would anybody like to read the first page or so? Any volunteers? Kunga?
Yep, I'll read. Chapter
Okay,
2.
so everybody please follow Kunga and word for word. And if you have any questions, bring it right up.
The inspiration. Now, monks, what is this extensive discourse on the Dharma known as the play in full? Monks, the Bodhisattva dwelt in the supreme realm of the heaven of joy, where he was honored by offerings, received consecration, and was praised and revered by 100,000 gods. He had achieved his goal and was elevated by his former aspirations. His intelligence was such that he had attained the entire range of the Buddha Dharma. Indeed, his eye of wisdom was at once both vast and utterly pure, radiating with mindfulness, intelligence, realization, modesty, and joyfulness. His mind was extremely powerful. He had mastered the perfection of generosity, discipline, patience, diligence, mental stability, knowledge, and skillful means. He was adept in the 4 paths of Brahma: great love, great compassion, great joy, and great equanimity. With great awareness, he was free of obscurations and had manifested a vision of wisdom free from attachment. Likewise, he had perfected each and every quality of awakening: the application of mindfulness, the thorough relinquishments, the basis of miraculous power, the faculties, the powers, the branches of awakening, the path and the factors of awakening. Sublime.
Hold on one second. I want to make a point. So here in the middle of this paragraph, there was, it says he had mastered the perfections of generosity, discipline, patience, diligence, mental stability, knowledge, and skillful means, and was adept in the 4 parts. So these 6 things are the 6 paramitas. We've studied this in Buddhism 101 before. The paramitas are the perfections. These are called the perfections, the wisdom perfection. Prajna means wisdom. Paramita means perfection. So these are the 6 perfections that we are engaging in order to purify ourselves as we approach becoming a bodhisattva. So as a practitioner, we're engaging in these paramitas, these perfections. As a yogi and a yogini, we are engaging in these purifications. And as a bodhisattva, as we engage on the bhumis, we go through levels of purification. So the point I'm trying to make here is this is a very seminal, foundational sutra that so many other things came out of. So here we're seeing it at this very base level, this very fundamental level, those things that we we learn in higher teachings that we spend time on. The second part of that line, it says, and was adept in the fourfold path of Brahma, great love, great compassion, great joy, and great equanimity. That is bodhicitta, isn't it? Bodhicitta. Here, the Buddha is expressing bodhicitta, great love, great compassion, great joy, and great equanimity. So here at this very early time, Buddha Shakyamuni is talking about this. And so it's so fundamental for us to be able to understand this and to be able to take this up and make it part of our awareness. Our awareness and the embodiment of it. We become the embodiment of this, not just aware of it, but we become the embodiment of this. Okay, sorry. Continue, Kunga.
Sublime signs and marks indicating his boundless accumulation of merit and wisdom beautifully adorn the body of the Bodhisattva, who had engaged in proper conduct for a long time. Acting in perfect accordance with his words, his unerring statements were always genuine, at once honest, straightforward, and free of guile. His mind was invincible, free of pride, conceit, arrogance, fear, and timidity. He was impartial towards all beings. Do you want me to keep going?
Please.
The Bodhisattva had paid homage to countless awakening beings, to billions upon billions of Buddhas. His loving gaze was revered by billions upon billions of Bodhisattvas. Likewise, Sakura, Brahma, Mahasvara, the guardians of the world, gods, Nagas, Gandharas, demigods, Garudas, Kinnaras, and Yaksas, and their multitude rejoiced in his glory. Having perfectly discerned their every word, the Bodhisattva's learned understanding of the teachings was at once unimpeded, discerning, and perfect. He was an unerring vessel of mindfulness, able to recall the teachings of all the Buddhas. The number of dharanas he had received was infinite. The Bodhisattva was the great captain, the vessel of Dharma, which he had perfectly accomplished through the application of mindfulness, and through relinquishments, the basis of miraculous powers, the faculties, the powers, the branches of awakening, the path, the perfection of knowledge, the precious quality of skillful means, and merit. With the intention to travel beyond the four rivers, he conquered Mara, subdued hostile forces, and defeated all of his opponents. Indeed, he set himself at the front lines and destroyed the enemy hordes of the afflictions with the firm Vajra weapon of supreme wisdom.
Okay, so hold on there a minute, please. So let's just go back and pick something out, because this stands out to me, is the basis of miraculous powers. So what do you think are the basis of miraculous power? Well, I didn't know. I wasn't sure anyway. I had an idea. So today, as I was preparing for this, I'm reading through this and I say, well, what does this mean? So, because I didn't know for sure. So it gave me cause to start looking things up. And I'm looking through some of my books and everything, and then not finding it. But then I said, what's wrong with you, Lance? We've got this great glossary here. Why aren't you using that? So I turned to the glossary, and I think, unless I've lost my mind.
Yeah, it's
63.
G63, yeah.
So it's G63. So it was right there the whole time. So the basis of miraculous power of the Bodhisattva, who is on the path to become Buddha, is his determination, is his discernment, is his diligence, and his meditative concentration. So these are human qualities, aren't they? These are human activities, to be determined, to have discernment, to be diligent, and to develop and practice meditative concentration. So the point I'm trying to make here is, it's not some mystical, magical kind of thing to become enlightened. It's a human thing that has a result that some people might consider to be magical or mystical, but it's really not. It's who we really are. It's what human beings are capable of. And we sell ourselves short, by not doing these things, by grasping the pleasures of what we might call the pleasures of life, the jobs we might have, the clothes we might wear, the relationships that we engage in, all these different things that consume our time and energy. So just making a point of what it is to be spiritual and how to attain that through these miraculous powers as being identified by Buddha Shakyamuni. Okay, so
What's the intention to travel beyond the four rivers? What are the four rivers in
well,
this
that's a good question.
context?
That's a very good question too. So I looked that up. I had to look a little deeper for that, I think. Let's see if it's in, I don't think it's in here. I had to find it someplace.
Yeah, I didn't look. I looked in there and see it.
Right. It's also called the four, the four outflows. The four outflows. So this is, if you consider yourself, you have this body, but then there are punctures that your energy, that your knowledge, that your purity is leaking out, outflows like rivers that are moving out. So what are these rivers? What are these outflows? The first one is sensual desires.
Yeah. Yeah.
The second one is desire for cyclic existence. Oh, I like this life. I want to come back to this life. The third one is wrong views. So wrong views can be broken down into three major wrong views. The wrong view that we do not respect, that we do not appreciate, that we do not believe in or trust in causes and effect. That's the first one. The wrong view, the second wrong view is not accepting the truth that liberation is possible, that you can follow the method as being brought forth by the Eightfold Path, and that there will be a cessation of your attachment, of suffering in the ocean of samsara. Now, just doing the practices won't necessarily do that. You got to have a great conviction. You have to have a great dedication for that. So that's included in there. Then the third of the wrong views is not accepting the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Now, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha can be broken down a little bit more to the body, speech, and mind. The holy body, speech, and mind that we have in our midst, within ourselves, that has been blocked up, that has been covered up, that has been obscured, that we have a holy body, a sacred body, that we have a sacred intellectual mind, and that we have a sacred spirit, a big mind, if you will, a heart mind. The body, speech, and mind, the three jewels. This is the three jewels of what we say as of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Buddha being the mind, the big mind, the speech being the intellectual mind, and the body being the physical body. So that's the third outflow, is not recognizing that, or rather the third wrong view of not recognizing that. And then the fourth of the outflows is our ignorance, our delusions, the outflow of delusion, the outflow of ignorance. We don't know what we don't know. And if we get caught up in that, it's like a whirlpool. We're never able to escape. So what's the remedy for that? Very, very generally, is being open, not closing ourselves up to any kind of thoughts or any kind of practices or anything, to at least, explore it, hear it out, see what it is. We may put it on the side. We may, say, well, I'm not ready for that, or I'm not so sure about that right now. But to not say, oh no, that's not possible. So those are the four outflows, or the four rivers.
What was number 2?
2 was desire for cyclic existence. That we enjoy the samsara. We want to be in samsara. We want to remain in samsara. Bernie, I want, do you have anything to add to this part of the conversation?
Sorry, my memory for a lot of this stuff is not so good. There's a lot of stuff in here which are traditional lists, and I went over it a while back, but my memory for a lot, like the branches of awakening, the 37 branches of awakening. Don't ask me to repeat all of them, but I've seen them before. The faculties, the powers, the branches of awakening. These are all the qualities that the Buddha has perfected. And there are lists of these in different places, and you can look them up.
These are all in the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, by the way.
Many of them are. I don't know that they all are. You can find a lot of them in the Buddhist Encyclopedia. That's where I found most of my information, which is kind of a Wikipedia for Buddhism. And but don't ask me to recite them off the top of my head, because I can't.
Okay, so we're just pointing a few things out to maybe give you inspiration for yourself to dig into this a little bit. Any questions or comments? Okay. All right, so Kongo, would you continue reading? We left off at 2.5.
The great being was like a lotus, having a stem of great compassion, deeply rooted in the mind of awakening. This lotus was born of superior intention. It was sprinkled with the water of profound diligence, and had skillful means at its center, branches of awakening for its anthers, and mental stability for its stamen. The lotus arose from an immaculate ocean of a vast accumulation of virtues. Its blossoming petals, illuminated by moonlight, free from the torment of pride and arrogance, were pristine, emitting the scent of discipline, study, and conscientious speech, unhindered throughout the 10 directions. This lotus was foremost throughout the world in terms of knowledge, yet untainted by the 8 worldly concerns. It radiated the sweet fragrance of the accumulation of merit and wisdom, while the sunlight of knowledge and the wisdom warmed it, causing the 100 petals of its pure vision to blossom.
Okay, so please hold on there. So we've used this analogy many, many times of the lotus seed that is planted in the bottom of the ocean of suffering, and its purity is maintained even though it is growing. The stem is growing through this ocean of samsara. It's not impeded. And the stem then comes and breaks the surface of the ocean of suffering, this samsara, and out into the clear atmosphere. And here this, then a blossom appears that bursts forth from that stem. So even though it's growing through that ocean of suffering, all that contamination, all that corruption and so on like that, it's untainted by it. And then it gets up there and the flower opens up and each one of the petals is completely pure, unstained by the ocean of suffering. So it's great analogy, and see that use the analogy again of Buddha Shakyamuni, Siddhartha Gautama. Here he had many lives and so on. And each life got maybe a little purer and a little purer and a little purer than the one before. And so he's born in that life, but each life, he's not being contaminated, as much as the prior life. He's being pure. And maybe, we ourselves have had the benefit of that ourselves. The sins that we have committed in the past or have committed in this life, maybe, relatively small sins that need to be dealt with, but at the same time, they're small. We haven't done terrible things. So we've been able to withstand the pressures or the temptations to engage in sinful things, non-virtuous things, unwholesome things, or maybe we have engaged in those and realized the errors of doing that, the mistakes of doing that, and then made amends and kind of purified ourselves from those things, never to go back to those things again. There was also a reference here that I think many of you should remember, and that is untainted by the 8 worldly concerns. Do you remember the 8 worldly concerns? We talked about that. The 8 worldly concerns. What do we think about? What do ordinary human beings mostly think about? The 8 worldly concerns. Was it praise and blame, fame and disgrace, gain and loss, and did I say pleasure and pain? There's 8 things, and there's there's opposites there, gain and loss, money, prestige, possessions, gain and loss, pleasure and pain, love relationships, pleasure and pain, family relationships, engagement in different activities, pleasure and pain. We may be playing baseball, but then we get beaned and now it becomes a very painful experience. Pleasure and pain, fame and disgrace. We may have a high degree of notoriety. People see us and respect us and so on. And Alex, I see your hand up. We see, and we have a great deal of respect because of what we're doing, but then people are loving us and support us, but then they find out that we have done terrible things in the past and we lose all that fame. We lose all that respect. People turn their backs on us. And praise and blame is now they're praising us. No, I'm repeating myself. Praise and blame, fame and disgrace. No, it was praise and blame. That we do something that's really good and worthwhile and we're helping people, but then we do something that is very negative and causes shame for ourselves and for other people and so on. So how much time, how much effort do we put into those 8 worldly concerns? So for us to be able to cure ourselves, to be able to apply a remedy, we have to understand the causes and the results. So this, by identifying these things, is very important to us. Alec, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just want to kind of make interesting observation. I think that oftentimes we think Buddha as lotus born, right? And here they talk about that he was like a lotus. But the interesting thing I find that normally we think like lotus is coming out of muddy waters, but in this case, the waters are actually the pure waters. So that was, of course, before he was born on earth, right? And here they say that the water, it was sprinkled with water of profound diligence and petals illuminated. Like, there was something about like where the lotus.
Well, I
But I get-
understand. And do you think that he saw it as the same water that we go through, the same ocean of suffering, but he had purified it to the point he didn't see the negativity there. He wasn't touched by the negativity that we might have been
Yes.
touched
Okay, I found this. It says this lotus arose from an immaculate ocean of vast accumulation of virtues. So just in this context, the
from.
water
So he
is
transformed it
you
by
know,
his virtue.
yes, virtues are nurturing his growth
Yes,
as
he
a pure
accumulated the
water.
virtues. He accumulated the virtues despite the non-virtues. So it's a point of
So
view.
yeah. I'm just thinking that's a
Very good. Thank
useful
you.
observation.
Yes, very good pointing that out. Thank you.
So who's is this supposed to be in the sutra the Buddha saying these words right now? Or is this
Yes. He's kind of speaking in the third person.
yeah. How it's a really interesting chapter just so far, and the way it's written, it's very like poetic. Obviously it's using a lot of these metaphors and everything and similes. To me, like the impact it has on me, or my take on it, is that it's like a really great kind of teaching for me, or example of devotion. Now I know it's supposed to be the Buddha speaking himself about these things, but to me it reads, or I interpret it as all the people who've come and compiled these teachings, compiled these sutras, and are putting them together in this way, like this I don't know, this level of reverence and devotion to the Buddha. It's really written like someone who's like someone you truly love, almost like kind of a poetry, just someone that truly love and respect in like this deep way. That's how it lands on me, or brings up for me, or my thoughts about it.
Well, that's great. Yes. And this is what Buddha Shakyamuni is doing. He's showing us through himself, through his own experience, how he became Buddha, how he went through these changes, and pointing out that, yeah, you can do this too.
I was noticing that this paragraph I just read mentioned a lot of the same qualities as the first paragraph. The mind of awakening, compassion, intention, diligence. The paramitas are in there. Branches of awakening are mentioned, and just in a different picture. Like a different symbolic depiction of them. Maybe the one that seems more list-like, and this seems more like a deity yoga practice. Where you're looking at an image and you're imagining all these different parts as having these different meanings and symbolism.
Yes, very good. So will you continue reading on 2.6, please?
The Bodhisattva was a lion among men. Swift and strong were his four bases of miraculous power. Just as the claws and fangs of the Four Noble Truth were extremely sharp, he bared the fangs of the four communions with Brahma, the four immeasurables, and gathered others through the four ways of attraction. With his head, with a well-proportioned body due to having understood the 12 links of dependent origination, and a flowing mane of the complete perfection of the 37 factors of awakening, along with awareness and wisdom, his mouth opened with the three gateways to liberation. While his eyes indicated utter purity of tranquility and insight, he dwelt in the mountain caves of mental stability, complete liberation, absorption, deep meditation. Born of the jungles of the four activities and discipline, he was endowed with the 10 powers, the fourfold fearlessness, the perfect might. The hairs on his body did not bristle with the fear of creation and destruction, nor did his valor ever diminish. He subdued the masses of extremists who are like the rabbits and deer, letting out the great lion's roar of no self.
So I just want to point out, there's many reference points here, things to look up. But even if you don't look these things up, you just read this straight through without interruption, it's inspiring just all by itself without knowing the minutiae of detail that goes into each one of these phrases and so on. It's inspiring all by itself just to do that. So, maybe that's the best way to approach this, through the first time, is to just read it straight through and then go back and begin to take things apart and look at it in greater detail.
It's interesting to think of the four immeasurables of loving kindness, joy, sympathetic joy, equanimity, and compassion as what do you call them? Fangs.
What was that?
He called them fangs. He just said the claws and fangs of the four noble. Oh, he said he bared the fangs of the four communions with Brahma. So I imagine those are the four immeasurables there. I thought that was interesting, to think of these, what we normally would say is, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. You don't think of those as fangs normally.
Well, they were loving fangs.
Yes. Yeah.
They were
Just gentle,
fierce.
like when your dog nibbles on you because he loves you.
Something like that, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So each one of these has a lot of meaning there. I'll point one out, the four ways of attraction. If you look about in the fourth sentence down in this paragraph, you see the four ways of attraction. So that's in the glossary 196. And so this is something that, we should be conscious of in order to see our work in this way, attracting other people, other students, not that they, the greatest thing is to have students to become better than you are, so it shouldn't be a selfish thing and saying, oh, I want everybody to be subservient to me. No, it's that you're waking people up and some people are going to go beyond your capabilities and so on. So this here, the 196 in the glossary says the four means of attracting disciples. And it says they are traditionally listed as the four: generosity. The generosity we show and demonstrate and activate by bringing the Dharma to other people. The generosity in sharing the Dharma, sharing our wisdom, sharing our experiences. The kind talk in which we do that. That we're not saying, oh, you dummies, you got to listen to this because this is what I told you. And if you don't pay attention to this, I'm going to yell and scream at you and get very angry. It should be, you are deserving of this. This is very sweet. You're going to enjoy this. It's going to be wonderful. You're using kind talk to be able to engage people and not to make them do this out of fear. You're doing this out of kindness and inviting them in to do this. And then meaningful actions, that we engage in meaningful actions, that we ourselves actually implement the teachings, that we're using the teachings and we're using our experiences as examples of how we've changed in our lives and so on. So this is how we're attracting disciples. We're saying, well, this is how I've done it. This is how it works for me. 21st century minds, we're making it contemporary to our relative time and space and so on. So meaningful actions. And then the last one is practicing what one preaches. So it's not just talking about our experience so much, but to be a living example. That sometimes, if you just follow a teacher and you're not even talking to them, but you're just following them around and doing and seeing what they do during the day, you will be impressed by that. My wife is a perfect example. She's not a practitioner. She hears us talking and so on, and she appreciates that, but it kind of goes in one ear and out the other. She's a good person, but that's her level of being able to absorb this. But what she really gets is when we have meetings over here with the lamas, with those who are really in the Dharma, that's what she connects with. Just being with them, because it is palpable, it is something that you can really sense with your eyes and with your body and your hearing and everything, just the way people like that are. And so that's what this refers to, practicing with one preaches, actually living a life of enlightenment. Okay.
I love that last line,
Let-
letting out the great lion's roar of no self.
Yes.
They often say, the Buddha, and then he let out his lion's roar, but they don't go into the detail of what that looks like. And so this is a really great paragraph to give you an image for whenever you read that, and he gave his lion's roar, then you have this image to go with it. I think that's really inspiring.
Yes, thank you. Alex, you turned on your microphone. Did you want to say something?
Yes. I wonder if you have any explanation of what are those 4 communions with Brahma?
The four was it called the four communions?
I think
Yes,
that's the
like
four
the
immeasurables.
things that symbolize it, and
Yeah.
all
Well,
the-
that's in the glossary, and that's 193 in the glossary.
Mhm.
So we can go through that right now. So it says, this is the definition from the 84,000 glossary of terms. The four communions with Brahma. Brahma is what? The highest god in the Hindu pantheon. Is that correct? Am I right in saying that?
Like a creator, yes,
The creator.
of the universe.
Yeah, they have 3. They have a holy trinity: the creator, Brahma, they have the protector, Vishnu, and they have the destroyer, Shiva. So Brahma is the creator. So the 4 qualities that are said to result in rebirth in the Brahma world, in that world, they are limitless, loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. So we're right back to
Oh, the 4 immeasurables.
bodhicitta,
Those.
the 4 immeasurables.
No, I never thought of them as a communion with Brahma. So
Well,
that
maybe
kind of
you didn't
means
know
that this
enough
is
about
like the
Brahma.
basic nature.
Yeah, I don't know much about Hinduism, not that much, to be able to make that association. But the Buddhism came out of Hinduism.
Yeah.
Much in the same way, the Christianity came out of Judaism.
I think I've read about this before, and the idea is that Brahma became Brahma. He was reincarnated as Brahma by cultivating these qualities.
Okay.
So that's why it's named that.
That would certainly make sense, yeah. Because they talk about the same thing, the reincarnation and the purifying and so on. So that certainly is very logical, makes a lot of sense.
What verse are we on,
And I
Lance?
guess those things.
Hi, Tashi. We're on 2.5, 2.6.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that those things, they probably meant not to be as like threatening things, but as a strong, white, pure things.
What was that word? I didn't understand that. White what?
Something that's very strong and white and
Oh,
I guess,
wide. Wide?
white,
The color white.
Color,
white,
right?
pure white.
Pure, yes.
So very pure, yeah. So I guess that's it's not something you they're probably meant to be not something to bite with, but something to show that you have those good things that are pure and solid and strong.
And it's something that I think reveals itself. It's effortless, you
when
know,
you open your
that
mouth,
just
when-
radiates, you know,
when you
that
start
light
speaking.
that light, so to speak, just radiates by itself. You can't make it radiate, it does it by itself.
Right. Just like when we speak, we may show our teeth, but we're not showing that to bite into anyone, but it just comes out as a byproduct.
Okay.
But it's there.
Okay, Congo, will you continue to read at 2.6?
Yeah, I think we're at 2.7.
2.7? Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. You're right.
At the sun of great beings, light rays of knowledge radiated from the orb of his liberation and concentration, dispelling the light of the swarms of extremists who are like fireflies, and eliminating the darkness and obscuring film of ignorance. Indeed, with brilliance, strength, and diligence, the radiant majesty of his merit shone brightly among gods and humans.
Let me point out something here, just very quickly. If you've got a copy of the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, and you go to page 454 and page 455, it articulates, it delineates the 32 major marks of the beetle, of the Buddha, and the 80 minor marks of the Buddha. So this is, in this short paragraph here, it was generally speaking about, you know, those qualities, the physical qualities and the intellectual qualities or whatever of the Buddha. So it goes into more detail in the Jewel Ornament of Liberation if you take a look at that, you know, and you know how literal we need to be about that. You know, I'm sure we don't have even half of those qualities and so on, but it's a point of being able to say, you know, how powerful, how pure the Buddha is. So I'll just point that out to you: the 32 major marks and the 80 minor marks on page 454, 455 in the Jewel Ornament of Liberation.
Is the orb of his liberation, is that just the general overall body of the Buddha? Is that referring to his I forget
His-
what you call that.
I would say his sphere, that sphere of enlightenment. You know, we
Okay.
talk about that the light radiates in 10 directions, and it's really, you know,
Like his aura, kind of.
like his aura. Yeah,
Kind of like that.
that's how I interpret it anyway.
Okay. Shall I keep going?
Please.
As the light of the moon, there was no darkness within him. He perfectly embodied all that is wholesome. The sight of him was beautiful to behold and pleasing to the mind, and his eye faculty was unobstructed. Adorned by the constellation of 100,000 gods, the moonlight of the soothing branches of awakening radiated from this sphere of concentration, liberation, and wisdom, causing the lilies among humans and gods to bloom.
Continue.
Go on. The great Bodhisattva was followed by a fourfold retinue, like the moon by the four continents, and he was endowed with the jewels of the seven branches of awakening. He engaged all beings equally and possessed an unimpeded analytical capacity. His intention was enhanced by the sublime and perfectly complete austerities and spiritual practices he observed on the path of the 10 virtuous activities. As the king of Dharma, he turned the precious wheel of the supreme Dharma without hindrance, having been born into a line of universal monarchs.
So this reference to the fourfold retinue, I couldn't find a definition of that. Tashi or Bernie, do you have an idea about that? I did think about in the four families of the Buddha, the Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas. I thought of it in terms of that, but what would you say? Bernie, your microphone's muted. Well, if you come across something, please share it with us.
I've seen fourfold virtue before, but I do not
Fourfold
recall.
retinue. Fourfold retinue.
I do not recall what it means.
So retinue is like, the
The
entourage.
fourfold retinue.
Yes.
Fourfold retinue. The fourfold retinue of Jesus. I should know what that is. Yeah, it probably means the orders of monks, nuns, novice, layman, layman, and lay women.
Oh, maybe you're right. Maybe that's it.
It makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. That there's the male monks and the female nuns, and then the lay practitioners, the male lay practitioners and the female lay practitioners, who are devoted practitioners, who are real devoted. So maybe so. Okay. Kunga, will you continue?
Sure. Filled with all the precious teachings, including that of dependent origination, so profound and difficult to fathom, he never tired of study. Thus his boundless wisdom had become vast and all-encompassing. His discipline was beyond measure as well. Indeed, his mind was as vast as the oceans and the earth, equal to earth, water, fire, and air. His mind was as firm and unmoving as Mount Meru. He was free from attachment and aversion, with a mind as pristine and open as the center of space. It was vast and unlike any other. His superior intent was utterly pure. His acts of generosity were done well, as were his previous endeavors and his superior deeds.
Okay, so just a moment. So this really, is talking about the things that we've been talking about tonight and so on. And this very first line where it says, filled with all the precious teachings, including those of dependent origination, so profound and difficult to fathom. So these were the teachings of the Tathagatas that he expounded on and be able to give the method to be able to overcome those sufferings. So what we've been talking about is here in this text. Continue on, please, to 11.
Sure. He sought out all basic virtues and had formed positive habitual tendencies. Ascertaining the basic virtues, he practiced all such virtues for 7 incalculable eons. He practiced the 7 forms of generosity, engaged in the 5 types of action that create merit. Just as he tread the path of the 10 virtues, the 3 physical, 4 verbal, and the 3 mental wholesome actions, and practiced the 40 kinds of correct application. Likewise, he did make the 40 kinds of correct aspirations, immerse himself in the 40 kinds of right intentions, perfect the 40 kinds of liberation, and erect the 40 kinds of right interest.
Yeah, so there are the 10 virtues. And then the opposites of that would be the 10 non-virtues. So we've talked about that many times. Here, the 10 virtues, the 3 physical of the body, the 4 verbal of the intellect, the verbal, those are the speech, and the 3 mental wholesome activities, and then the unwholesome activities. So yeah, that's something that is very easy to look up and to be able to make a note about in your book. It might be in the glossary. I haven't looked. Please continue.
He took ordination with 4 million Buddhas and presented 5.5 million Buddhas with offerings. Similarly, the Bodhisattva served 1,540 million solitary Buddhas, establishing innumerable sentient beings on the path to the higher realms and liberation. He desired to become perfectly and completely awakened to attain supreme, genuine, and complete awakening. With only 1 lifetime remaining, he passed away and was reborn in the supreme realm of the heaven of joy as a supreme divine child named Sevateku.
Svetaketu.
Sevateku. The assembly of gods showed him great reverence, honoring him as one who would leave their midst and take birth in the human world, where before long he would become the Buddha, attaining perfect, complete, and unexcelled awakening. Should I go on?
Please.
All right. He dwelt in a celestial palace with 32,000 floors adorned with verandas, domes, architraves, skylights, cool pavilions, multiple stories, and courtyards. This palace was filled with parasols, flags, and streaming banners. It was covered by canopies of tiny jeweled bells and strewn with mandarava and maha mandarava flowers. The songs of millions upon millions of celestial maidens could be heard throughout. Its enchanting even grounds were covered with golden canopies filled with various trees, such as mountain ebonies, kampakas, trumpet vines, orchid mukalindas, maha mukalindas, asokas, banyans, persimmon trees, naras, karnakaras, kasaras, sals, and coral trees. In every direction, there were flowered canopies overflowing with giatas, malikas, Barasakas, Taranas, Sumanas, Bali, Kataranas, and other sweet-smelling flowers. Likewise, there were Banakari flowers, celestial flowers, blue lotuses, pink lotuses, water lilies, and white lotuses. Various birds flew through the air, singing out their beautiful melodies. Among them were parrots, sarakas, cuckoos, geese, peacocks, ducks, pheasants, snipe, partridge, and many others.
All right, so we can see, all right, so let me stop you there, please.
Okay.
So we can see, the opulence, the beautiful natural opulence in which he was living. Now, I'm not sure, we'd have to read on here. Was this his palace as a prince? Or
In the
was
heaven
it-
realm. He's in the heaven realm here.
Oh, this was the heaven realm?
Yeah, the heaven of joy.
Okay, right. Okay.
Tushita.
Tushita heaven.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, because otherwise, who would ever build those 32,000 floors?
Now, of course, for myself, I take this to be metaphorical. How literal
I
can
want to
we?
say,
How literal can we
I would
take?
say no.
What was that, Alex?
I just want to say that no wonder he was unimpressed with his earthly palace. If celestial palace was so nice.
Lance, I really want to go there. I do. That
I'll
sounds
get bored with that.
great.
Well,
Sign me up.
well, Brendan, that's your Buddha field.
As long as you don't have to scrub the floors before you leave the place.
Even that would be a labor of love. So, Tashi, can I ask you to continue to read, please? We're on
Sure.
2.14.
Okay. Millions upon millions of gods turned their eyes toward the palace and gazed at it in awe. The great and vast Dharma was proclaimed throughout, and thereby the force of their enthusiastic desire subdued all the afflictions, eliminating pride, conceit, arrogance, aggression, rage, and anger, and bringing about happiness, well-being, joy, and mindfulness on a vast scale. The Bodhisattva dwelt comfortably in this great celestial palace, where a discourse on the genuine Dharma emerged amid a symphony of 84,000 musical instruments. From their sound, the following verses of inspiration arose, telling of the many virtuous deeds that the Bodhisattva carried out in times past. Recall the power of your vast store of merit and the illuminating knowledge of your boundless intelligence, peerless strength, and great power. Recall the prophecy of Dipankara. When a mind free from the vast range of impurities, you have pacified conceit and flaws, relinquishing the three stains, while your virtuous heart is at once pristine and free from fault. Bring to mind your generous deeds of times past. You have cultivated tranquility and discipline, practiced austerities and patience, subdued and diligent, with concentration in the strength of knowledge. Bring to mind all the deeds you engaged in over billions of aeons. You developed compassion for all sentient beings and made offerings to billions of Buddhas. Remember, do not forget, you who are of infinite renown. Now the time has come, do not let it slip away. Immaculate One, destroyer of the afflictions, birth, and death, gods, nagas, yakshas, and gandharvas, and the powerful demigods await you. You who know the way of death and passing away take rebirth. Even enjoying pleasurable things for thousands of aeons will not satisfy them, just as salt water will not slake one's thirst. Now that you yourself are sated, be kind. Please satisfy those who have thirsted for so long. Are you not one of untarnished reputation who takes delight in the Dharma, not desire? And furthermore, your eyes are unblemished. So now please look with compassion upon the world with its gods. Were the millions of gods not satisfied upon hearing the Dharma from you? So now please cast your gaze upon those who dwell in the lower realms, those who have no freedom. With your mighty unblemished gaze, have you not observed the Buddhas throughout the 10 directions of the world, listening to them as they teach the Dharma? Please therefore reveal the supreme Dharma to the world. Glorious One, do you not adorn the palace of the heaven of joy with the splendor of your merit? So please, with the heart of compassion, rain down upon Jambudvipa. Many gods of the realm of form who have transcended the realm of desire are all rejoicing in you, saying, reach awakening through your austerities. Protector, you are to conquer the works of Mara and bring defeat to the extremists. Has awakening not been placed in the palm of your hand? The time has now come. Do not let it slip away. Courageous One, like a great bank of clouds, you cover this world that blazes with the fire of afflictions. Please send down a shower of nectar and soothe the afflictions of gods and humans. Like a skilled doctor who knows the constitutions of his patients, you dispense medicine to those who are chronically ill. With the healing salve of the threefold liberation, bring these beings swiftly to the blissful state of nirvana. Not hearing the lion's roar, jackals yelp without fear. Let forth the lion's roar of the Buddhas, striking fear into the hearts of the jackal-like extremists. Holding the lamp of knowledge in your hand, you have the power of strength and diligence, unique upon the earth. Now you must defeat Mara, touching the earth with the perfect palm of your hand. With the 4 guardians of the world are present, waiting to offer you an alms bowl. Sakra, Brahma, and millions of others are present as well, waiting to receive you when you take birth. You with sublime wisdom, you whose line is great indeed, cast your gaze upon the great family with whom you will live. Observe the precious exalted family among whom you will take birth. For this is where you will manifest the conduct of a Bodhisattva. When a precious jewel is placed in the right vessel, it makes the jewel even more glorious. Likewise, let your pristine mind, like a precious jewel, rain down upon the victory banner of Jambudvipa. Thus did the melodious sounds of many verses such as these spring forth, exhorting the compassionate one with the words, the time is now, do not let it slip away. This concludes the 2nd chapter on the inspiration.
So this was like a great song. It was filling the atmosphere of this celestial palace, of this Tushita, this celestial heaven of the Buddha before, as a Bodhisattva, before he became Buddha. So it's a great to recite this, to read this over and over again, to give ourselves inspiration to continue to move on in our practice. Would anybody else like to comment on this?
I think it's also inspiration to ourselves when we think about our fortunate birth and all that. Maybe not as splendid, but still, for most of us, quite comfortable.
Yes, thank you.
So it looks like that this inspiration is also inspiration for bodhisattvas to go on that path. That's just my observation.
Thank you.
I want to just make a comment about the celestial palace with 32,000 floors and all the amazing things in there. So when I first started getting acquainted with these type of writings, it was really strange for me to kind of get my head around it. But as I get more experience with them, I just think of this, you know, you said at the beginning, you know, whether or not we think this is something real or something, you know, we should imagine, how do we understand that as 21st century people? I think about the idea that as soon as we read this, we make it just as real as everything else that exists in our mind. You know, everything in our mind, you know, it's just us translating signals, right? We're just translating signals that are coming in. So we have all this information, we just bring it in, and it just becomes equal to everything else. And so for me, it's a way of just helping you to expand your perspective, and take you a step out of this sort of mundane perspective and taking a step into that more ultimate perspective. It gives you a little taste of that through literature. Thank you.
Yeah,
No,
I think it is like if you talk to someone in like 1700 and they said, how'd you get here? I said, well, I got into this 20-ton metal tube and flew across the ocean. They'd be like, you're out of your mind. So these things from our perspective look very different. I think they're possible in celestial realms.
Yeah, and that's in keeping with keeping an open mind.
Yeah, it's Debbie. One time, Kempo was talking and he said, I'm not sure, but I think probably almost everything is possible. It's hard to say, especially in, the world that we live in was so radically different from the world of the people that, we're trying to make sense of the words of the Buddha and trying to practice it. It's basically like a mental technology that, humans of that time had never experienced. And, if you know that Hinduism in that area, spirituality is very important. It was built into every aspect of the society that he grew up in. But yeah, it was this amazing technology. So thanks for introducing these things. I really appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you. I'd like to, I had intended at the beginning of this session, we've been introducing ourselves. We've been going through, one person at a time in each meeting, introducing, and I forgot to pause today to do that. So I'd like to ask Kunga if you could speak a few minutes about what it is that you've been doing in the Dharma and so on, and what your progression has been. And maybe next week, Tashi, we'd like to ask you. Tashi can't be with us when we begin because he has another obligation to be at, but he comes in later in the session. So I would certainly like him to let everybody know, because Tashi is an ordained monk, and that's a wonderful thing, and it's a boon to us all. So it'd be wonderful for Tashi to share a bit of his life with us. But for now, Kunga, if you would spend just a few minutes talking about yourself, please.
Sure. Well, I'm pretty new to this group. I think I just started attending maybe a month or so before the new year. I kind of stumbled onto your group because I was doing some research. I'm a student. I'm taking I have a teacher at the Grand Rapids Buddhist Temple who's a monk in the Mahayana tradition. It was more sort of Zen. So that I think Mahayana with a very strong leaning towards Zen, but not pure Zen. and studying with him to become a monk in our tradition. I'm supposed to be ordained in June. About 2 years ago, I became a Dharma teacher. So at the Grand Rapids Buddhist Temple. So anyways, I was studying. I've been studying the Avantamsaka Sutra since the summer, and in studying that, I came across this group and some of my research online to find out more information about it. So as part of this program through the Grand Rapids Buddhist Temple, I've been studying there for, I think this is going on my 3rd year. I took precepts there at the Grand Rapids Buddhist Temple, and I took Bodhisattva vows there. We have kind of like a program for lay people to go through these, where you meet at the temple, you do various activities at the temple, participate in groups, have books that we read. So I went through those. I went through the precepts with the individual teacher, and then I went through the Bodhisattva training with the group. I was a Dharma teacher intern there before I became a Dharma teacher for about a year. And that involved a lot of reading of early Buddhist sutras, Majjhima Nikaya, the Digna Nikaya, and then also some of the more Mahayana teachings, like the Prajnaparamita teachings, like the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, the Lotus Sutra. We have different translations of those and commentaries that we study. Prior to that, I was leading a meditation group here in St. Joe, Michigan. I led that group for about 10 years. I started leading that group after I took refuge vows with Shambhala meditation group in Kalamazoo. That's a group, Chogyam Trungpa started that Shambhala meditation, and I did a series of different trainings with them. They call them, warrior trainings, and I did that for a couple of years, and I got my Dharma name from the Shambhala group. And we used to, for that meditation group here in St. Joe, it's a pretty small group. We just meet every week. We'd read different Dharma books together. We'd have a retreat every year, like a silent retreat. Prior to that, just kind of studying on my own a little bit. The first book that really brought me into Buddhism was Sogyal Rinpoche's Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. I think you mentioned that Glimpse After Glimpse has highlights from that book. So that book, someone gave me that book when my mom passed away. I've been reading about Buddhism before that, but sort of my turning point where I became, just like I was sort of a disinterested Buddhist, right? Just kind of reading and learn about this, not really putting the practice hardcore into my life. But then when my mom had cancer and ended up passing away from cancer about the same time, I had to have open heart surgery. So this idea of how precious human life is, that fourth thought turned into mind toward Dharma, that really, affected me, the preciousness of human life and how important it was to use my life in a meaningful way. So that kind of really got me on the road to being a lot more serious in my practice. So right now I sit with this group on Monday nights. I have a meditation group that I do through the temple on Wednesday nights. Saturdays, I sit with the Soto Buddhist group. I've been sitting with them for a couple of years. We have temple services on Sundays. Once a month, I give a Dharma talk there. Currently, I'm doing a Bodhisattva class there. We have 3 students in that. That meets once a month for 8 months. Prior to that, we had a preceptor class, which I helped facilitate. We had a good class size for that class. We had like 7 or 8 people in it, and they met every week for 3 months. So, and I'm the senior teacher at the temple, so there's a lot of responsibility. There's like 4 other teachers that work with me, and we do all the programming at the temple and everything. We're cut free of a tradition because our temple was a Korean Taego order Buddhist temple when it was founded about 12 years ago. but within a couple years, we had to cut that connection with that lineage because they put out all these rules about the monks couldn't be over 55, they couldn't be married, they couldn't be women, they couldn't be homosexual, and we were violating all those rules with our monks. So we had to break off that connection with that lineage. And we had our senior teacher still, the one who was ordained in that lineage, and we just became this more general Mahayana temple, incorporating different practices. Like we have Lojong practices in the temple, we have Zen practices in the temple. We read from all the different schools of Buddhism, so it's kind of a sort of a mishmash, but we're trying to organize it in a way that's meaningful for our Western audience. Like that's our focus. Yeah, so thank you.
Well, thank you. I got maybe other people have questions. I just want, I think it would be interesting to hear that you're being involved now with this Vajrayana group, this Tibetan Buddhist group. How has that changed anything in your point of view and your attitude and your practice? Can you speak about that for a moment?
Oh yeah, it's really broadened it, I mean, I knew a little bit about Vajrayana practice just because I'm somewhat familiar with some Lojong, and just from Chogyam Trungpa, that was the practice that he came out of. But it's really, broadened my experience. It's been nice. I've incorporated the deity visualization practice. I started doing that in the morning a couple months ago, just the Shakyamuni Buddha visualization. I'm thinking about the Nondro, how could I incorporate that? At least I'm trying to set down some of the groundwork, like trying to memorize some of the prayers and things. It's a balance, right? I have to, because I can't, I'm trying to incorporate what I'm learning by figuring out ways to bring that learning to the Sangha, at Grand Rapids. So I did my talk that I posted on the WhatsApp was my interpretation of using the 5 families of the Buddha to kind of explain my own spiritual path and to give people in the Sangha that way of looking at their own development. So, I mean, it's been really informative, and I think it's really broadened and deepened my understanding. I mean, the Four Noble Truth, the Eightfold Path, many things are similar, but the Tibetan perspective is something I wasn't that aware of. So it's giving me a deeper perspective, just like practicing with the Zen group gives me a deeper perspective as well, since I hadn't come out of that experience either.
Very good. Thank you.
I have a comment and a question. My comment is that I'm reciting the Abhisamsaka Sutra out loud from beginning to end, and I'm about halfway through. I'm in the 10 stages now. It's a great sutra. I love it. It's so inspiring, and it's just beautiful to be immersed in it.
Maybe we're having a book group. We're trying to organize a book group about it, and maybe I should send you the link to see if you would be interested in participating.
Yes, I am interested in that. Thank you. Yeah, please do.
I'll need your email. Maybe you could share your email in the WhatsApp.
Yeah. I'll do that. And also my question is, you say you're in St. Joe, Michigan. Where is that? Is that the Upper Peninsula, or is that near Detroit, or?
It's across from Detroit, it's across Lake Michigan from Chicago. It's a little tiny town about 40 miles north of South Bend, Indiana.
Okay. So you go Chicago, Gary, South Bend, and then up to where you're at?
Yeah, you just keep going up.
Okay, cool, thanks. I don't know that area of the country too much. I like to learn about it.
Okay, well, very good. Thank you. Does anybody have anything else that you'd like to ask anybody else? Bernie spoke a couple of weeks ago, and Debbie spoke last week. And so if anybody has any other questions about what we've been talking about tonight with the sutras, I hope, you're finding this interesting. maybe I got a little bit of a soft spot because I'm not sure if everybody's enjoying this, and I think maybe I'm trying to I'm a little vulnerable thinking that people aren't really, interested in this right now. But
I'm loving it, Lance.
so a little bit of encouragement always makes me feel good.
Lance,
Oh,
I am
man.
enjoying this so much, and it's amazing to have Kunga on with us. That makes me really happy. And my wife is kind of a Zen practitioner. She doesn't realize it, but she says Zen. Alan Watts says the only Zen you bring up to the top of the mountain is what you bring up with you, and that's my wife. So I'm encouraging her to join us as well. But yes, thank you.
Well, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Brendan.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. I've never really read too much of the Mahayana sutras before, so it's a new experience for me. It's very interesting.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. And Kunga in particular, as well as other people, can't tune in with us all the time, every day that we do it, on Sundays and so on. But there is a following of people who are watching on YouTube. And I've been getting messages, of people who are asking questions and who are, want to join the group. So we'll see how that develops. That should be very nice. Okay, well then I guess we should end a little bit early tonight, and I'm finding this very good myself, and so next time we'll talk about the purity of the family. So it's going to be good to see how this develops, and my intent is to see if we can go through these first 10 chapters, and then after that maybe move into another one of the sutras, and come back to this particular sutra down the road somewhere. So that would be good. I'd also like to, if I got time right now, is to say that we've been doing this Noble Film Night on Friday nights. And these films are really, really great films. They're taken in, some of them in Tibet, some of them are in Ladakh, some of them are in India, some of them in that Himalayan region and Bhutan and so on. Some of them are Western stories that have to do with the spirituality of things, making comments, making relationships, or making references to the Buddhism as well as Christianity and Judaism and all the other different traditions and so on. So it's been very enlightening. These are very good films, and I really want to encourage people to be able to join with these films, because I think they're priceless. We've been doing it on Friday night, and we've had just a few people, there've been 5 or 6 people joining us, and it would be great to have more people join us. And I thought, well, maybe Friday night's not the best night, maybe Saturday night is a better night, and those are the 2 nights that I would have available to do it. And we first announced this years ago when we were doing this as Date Night with the Buddha on Saturday night. So maybe your family might be interested, your kids, your wives, your boyfriends, girlfriends, etc., might be interested, for 2 hours to see something like this. There are really very good experiences that will open up your mind and your heart just a little bit more. So does anybody have a preference? Would anybody like to join on Saturday night? Do you think that that's would be a better night for you, or are you happy with the Friday night?
I like Saturday night.
You like Saturday night?
Yeah.
Anybody else have a comment? How about Friday night? Anybody like Friday night better? All right.
Saturday night would be
Bhavani,
better
like-
for me as well.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Yeah, I
I
like
was saying Saturday night
better.
would be better for me as well. Oh, sorry, Alex.
Okay. But William and Bhavani, you prefer Friday night. Does that mean you couldn't do Saturday night? Okay. All right. Well, we're not going to change it right away. I'm thinking maybe in March, And I'm thinking March is a good time that we're going to start with the 8-hour Milarepa story, the whole life of Milarepa. So that might be a good thing to do.
Is it in English or is it subtitled?
It's all Tibetan, no subtitles, but
No
Dorji Damdol did a narration that we recorded.
Ah, okay, cool.
So he's going by and line by line, he's doing a narration of the story.
Awesome.
And the story follows very closely the life of Milarepa, the book by Lobsang La Lungpa. So it's very faithful to that book. All right, well, very good. Thank you very much. We'll do the dedication. So if you've got your prayer book, please, we'll go to the dedication by Lord Jigten Sumgun on page 36.
Glorious, holy,
Glorious,
venerable,
holy, venerable, precious, kind root, and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yogins, Yoginis, and Dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana, and the innate word of virtue, not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Sravaka or Pratyeka Buddha. May all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Mars and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you all very much.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night. See you all soon.